from really old to 1980s stuff. It's a little bit of everything.
We serve the needs of or cater to very different groups, period dance people, vintage classic car clubs.
Because there's people buying now that weren't born until 1980. They think that stuff from the 80s is vintage.
The thing with the vintage clothing is you've got to be adaptable to what is popular now and what people are looking for, and so you've got to follow the trends.
That I've discovered over the years that are close to 100 years old, pieces of clothing that I just wondered what kind of story that thing could tell.
Every piece that's been around for a long time has had a life of its own.
From really old to 1980s stuff. It's a little bit of everything, and we've got every price point from $10, $20 up to thousands of dollars for really, really great stuff, from designer wear to just everyday wear that everyone wore.
Blushers. Blushers are my favorite. So sort of the netting over the eye and hats and accessories. I find sometimes the clothes are a little bit small to fit me, so I always find that you can always come and find amazing accessories here.
It's very fashionable. It is a lot of times the trend-setting thing. It's like people pick up little bits and pieces and wear one piece of vintage with contemporary clothes. We set a lot of the trends, so we get a lot of designers here that come and buy the old stuff and modify it and copy it somewhat and just get ideas from the old stuff. So it's like they always say, what is old is new again, and all that thing.
We serve the needs of or cater to very different groups, period dance people, vintage classic car clubs, vintage lovers of different periods, those who wouldn't wear on a bet, and those who buy vintage to wear. And we've had things from as far back as Louis XIV court dress, an authenticated, really a museum piece, on up to current day 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that people wear, and the retro things that the younger kids like to wear, and mix and match vintage and modern.
Yeah, she's a 20s baby. She loves the 1920s and 1930s, and I'm more 40s and 50s.
To me, as an idealist, 1970s is kind of borderline vintage. I like to think of vintage as being pre-1950s, but because there's people buying now that weren't born until 1980, they think that stuff from the 80s is vintage. So it is just of a time period.
Vintage, when we first started getting into it, was mainly what you saw was like Victorian stuff through the 50s, and now it's all the way up to 90s. I mean, I think one of the reasons the vintage clothing is still successful is we're getting the younger kids who love it, and to them 80s is old, 90s is old. So it's just, if it was the rare stuff in the 80s and 90s that the hip people were wearing, or the really cool people were wearing, they want it now.
I come here and I see all of the major designers, and I just saw Nate, Oprah's home designer, here, and Dita Von Teese is here, and you see so many people who are setting the trends actually coming to this show to see what we've done before in the past and make modern twists on it.
A little bit, it's much harder to find for males. And the reason for that is, over the last 150 years, well, probably 250 years, typically the male items would be outgrown, cut down for the younger males, and worn out. Whereas the ladies' great things got put away, carefully packed away in trunks. So this, as you find trunks, you find ladies' items. You don't find men's items.